And we turn to our next guest. She believes that society is transforming and we can no longer rely solely on business owners and agricultural voters. We live in a socialist world, she says. Society has grown empathy and, most importantly, appreciate equality. Heather G. Taylor is a passionate farmer, Manawatu District councillor, and at her young age is also studying a graduate diploma in politics. What caught my eye was a post on Facebook recently and some of her thoughts following the recent election and what it might mean for farmers and growers. And Heather joins us now. Evening, Heather. Of course, we're straight to the rain gauge. What's happened overnight?
Yeah, well, it's finally started raining. I was sort of planning a bit of an inside day today, but I managed to get a morning worth of activity in, so that's good. But it's started now, which is, yeah, we're very grateful for that.
I know you've had a hard time through where you are based in that last summer period. Is it really sort of sinking in, that moisture?
You guys say we're sort of only 2 weeks away from a drought, and I believe that. Like, it's still weirdly dry, and it's been a weirdly warm winter. So great for lambing percentages, great for grass growing now, but heading into the summer, I'm not too sure where we might be heading. Hopefully the rain keeps up and we keep it through the summer.
We've got Phil Duncan on from Weather Watch towards the end of the show here. That I'd like to give him your wish list. How much and when exactly would you like that weather?
Constant moisture and sunshine in between. Wouldn't most farmers say that?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, let's talk about, you're a politically minded young regional councillor. You're a young farmer as well. And I suppose that's what captured the attention. Richard Rennie in this week's Farmers Weekly talked about the Labour's rural tsunami, he described it as. And he went to Nigel Woodhead, former Young Farmer of the Year. He's been to Dean Rabbage, again, another former Young Farmer of the Year. There's a lot of mixed bags amongst young farmers around why this happened. I want to know your thoughts.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, as you've mentioned already tonight, there's a lot of sceptical people thinking that that people voted for Labour purely to keep the Greens out. And if you're voting that way, is that really voting for what you actually truly believe in? I don't think that is the right way to be voting, and I sincerely hope that that's not how the majority of New Zealand have voted. Or a large number of New Zealanders have voted. So I think what's happened is there has been a sort of breakdown in the leadership of the National Party throughout the past 3 years, and particularly during campaigning time, which wasn't really beneficial. But I think people are more aware of how we treat each other, and I think that's coming through in the way that kids are taught these days in the education system, and Labor's so strong on the socialist issues, and, well, the left in general is, and I think that National has always been very much around infrastructure and the economy, and I think that's all well and good, but I think it's the way that we communicate that the National Party is communicating that probably needs to be adjusted, I think, because with the way in which society is changing, it's going to be difficult to swing it back to the right in the future. That's what I'm thinking anyway, and it does concern me that we're going to be stuck down this left socialist train without a right to keep things in check. That does concern me, and I was pleased to see David Seymour get as many votes as he did, though, to sort of keep things in line.
Do you believe that National and Labour have become so centralist and therefore the definition between the two is hard to find?
We're in the agriculture industry, and I don't think we do. I'd say from an agricultural point of view, absolutely not. No. But I think whatever government is in power, though, has to do what the people want. That's democracy. And so, yes and no. I think that they're still true to their original values and the left and the right thinking. But I think that there is a great understanding there of democracy and how democracy works, which is the people for the people, in my opinion. And so I think the government are going to cater for what the majority of people are after, and hopefully listen to that and action it.
I'd actually like to know, now head into your area in the Manawatu. I was speaking to a dairy farmer from Martin yesterday at a dinner party, Heather, and he said he was shocked when there was a teacher's day out with the children on the dairy farm that the parents from the very local, regional, rural town were so disconnected to farming. It's not about Auckland anymore, is it? And is rural, regional New Zealand's the disconnect that we need to fix first?
Yeah, well, I, along with many people, watched the election night quite eagerly and was very concerned to see our electorate heading to Labour. And thankfully, I went to bed just as it swung back to National. But I think that's because my thinking and the way that I justify it is I think much along the lines of that Farmers Weekly article was that the small towns were all counted first. Well, they must have been, surely. And that's where the majority of those Labour votes came from. And I do think that comes from a disconnect between what's actually happening on the farm compared to in our small rural towns. So on the Manawatu District Council, our main town is Fielding, and so there is a lot of town people in Fielding who don't have a direct association with agriculture anymore. A lot of people working over in Palmerston North, for example. And so without those education programs, it is, I don't know how else we're going to push that back into rural towns.
And I want to speak on your youth side and what we just heard there from Julia Jones in leadership and the thought leadership, regardless of positional leadership, as Lindy Nelson said there in the comments. How does each and every one of us stand up and actually be a leader moving this conversation forward, do you believe?
I think it comes down to integrity. And integrity is one of those things where you're doing the right thing all the time, even when no one's looking. And that's what we need in our industry is integrity and people doing the right thing all the time. And it only takes one bad story to start ruining our reputation. And unfortunately, there are those the poorer 5%, for example, in our industry, which generally catch the attention more than those of us out there fighting the good fight as such. And so I think from a leadership perspective, yes, it's great to be outspoken, and we're hearing a lot about the good stories coming through in agriculture. I mean, you have a lot of them on your show as well as Country Calendar and the likes, but so there's those sorts of people who are outspoken in what they're doing, but there's also just ticking over and doing the right thing all the time, fencing off your waterways, acting with the environment at the forefront of what you do in sustainable business practice. I think it's all key in making sure that our industry moves forward in the right direction.
I want to talk to you because you're a digital native. And social media is something that is you've only ever grown up with. You don't know any different. Do you believe we have confirmational biases within our own industry to continuously feed a narrative within ourselves?
I think I do a wee bit. I like telling people what I'm up to, and I think that's because I love the life I live on the land and having a variation in what I do. Like, I think it's a great story to tell, and I do it because I think that if I go out and inspire one person to start a career in farming or to look into a career in the agricultural sector, that is so great. That is like a big win for me. So if someone sees that I'm out there breaking in a horse and riding it at work and they're like, whoa, that's so cool. That is, for me, that's like, yes, I've encouraged someone to look into the agricultural industry because it's not just slaving away and not getting anywhere. There is some really cool parts to it that are rewarding and actually include, like, a lot of people enjoy riding horses for fun, and I get to do it for my job, and so, like, there's a lot of things that you just don't get to see day to day that I think it's important. Like, social media is such a big key in a lot of young people's lives, and if we can influence it positively, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Use it, for the positive. Damien OConnor's up next. What is one thing that you really hope that he pushes forward in this next 3 years? Heather?
Oh, look, it would just have to be the importance of our industry. Like, we are so important to what is happening within New Zealand's economy. And as long as he's pushing that, I think the rest will flow. I think the environmental regulations might have to take a look at that as well. In terms of the live export of cattle, I hear that that's been allowed again. But things like that, he just needs to be pushing the importance of our industry, not only for our economy, but also in terms of the well-being of people. There's a lot of people employed through the agricultural industry and those secondary industries that rely on the primary industry. So it's just essential, and the government need to be aware of that.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. She is a councillor for the Manawatu District Council, young farmer from the Manawatu area, Heather G. Taylor.
This is Sarah's Country.